The Global Community Conversation, a Various Fields series special, Various Dialogues. Hey everybody, welcome to Various Fields. My name is Hazen Fields II.
I'm Hazen Fields III.
And I'm Lex.
All right, we are so very happy to have you here with us on this day. We have a gentleman that has been in our family for many years, and he is in my opinion, an icon, an iconic figure within the upstate region, Albany area. We are talking of Mr. Michael Terry. All right, let's get him. All right. Well, before I give him the microphone, I'm going to give you a little bit of background from my perspective. My godfather, many years ago when I was a young man, owned a barbershop. His name was Jesse, and we honor. And we're going to actually, somewhere along the line, dedicate this particular program to Jesse Hodges. He owned a shop, and he was a good, godly man, and he ran his shop in such a way that he was actually a central community safe spot at his shop, and that always meant a lot to me. Moving forward to where I had children, I moved to this area. Finding that kind of spot became hard until I ran into Michael Terry. His mindset as a business owner, he owns a barbershop called TNT Cuts in the Albany area, and I believe it's so important that we just don't deal with what's on top of our head, but what's in it. And he is definitely a gentleman that knows how to speak to you and speak life to power, strength to power. Super intelligent. So I know I've said more than I should have, but Michael Terry, thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. All right. So let's just jump right in.
Let's go.
There's, we talk about the barber shop, and I know in the African American community there's some places that are hubs of community centers of discussion and narratives and things of that nature. One is the church, but the barbershop has always been a central focus. And I believe that you represent, to me, that which is good with that iconic figure. So tell me, and I know, tell me your feelings on that, or how do you feel, where do you place yourself there, or not?
Well, just to give a little background, TNT Cuts has been operating in the city of Albany for about 31 years now.
Wow.
And in that time, we've had many barbers that have worked at the shop, who moved on, some who now have their own shops. We've watched many young people grow up. I used to always say that one of the things that I actually enjoyed about the trade was you had an opportunity to get to know your community.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be giving somebody a cut, as they're getting married for the wedding, and then maybe a year later, giving them a cut and ask them why they're getting divorced. Looking at young kids that you remember when, there was about this high, big ears, big feet, wearing a purple shirt, running real fast. Eddie Murphy style. But now you're seeing people who have become men themselves who are now bringing their kids.
Yes.
There's one family here in Albany who I have great respect for. Actually, I'll mention the name just because I love the family greatly. Juan George. He did like 4 generations of his family.
Wow.
I used to watch Jerry Springer with his father. An 80-year-old man. Wow, ay. Right down to his grandsons and great grandsons. So, being a barbershop is something in which you kind of get to know your community. over years. And some of the relationships that you're able to build with customers sometimes span years as well. So that for me has been the big payoff. You know, it's not, they always say, you know, you'll never get rich being a barber. And most barbers that I know have to do something else as well. But there is something beautiful about not only being able to get to know your community, but, and I guess what everybody respects about barbershops is a facilitator of conversations,
Right, absolutely.
you know, that take place. Nowadays, again, 30 years later, I see a lot of people sitting there, 5 men in the room, all sitting there looking at their phones, you know. But there are definitely times in which conversations become abundant, opinions going back and forth. And I think this is a very appropriate time to even shout out Kirk Moore,
Yes.
who has been with me, you know, probably getting close to 30 years.
Yes.
You know, has been not only a staple of the shop, but, you know, whose personality has greatly aided
Yes.
in the type of environment that we have here at the shop.
Absolutely. Agreed. Agreed.
I just jumping in to give context as well. We were both myself and the brother were one of the kids mentioned that grew up with Michael Terry, Mr. Terry. And actually, I'm going to say it to the audience right now because I know it might make Mr. Terry also slightly uncomfortable. It is honestly like a little bit Pavlov effect because I'm getting old, I'm an adult now, all that kind of stuff, but I know Michael Terry as Mr. Terry, Mr. T for the longest time, so always also made the associations with the change and the whole thing. But that's but you'll see me make that switch, and sometimes so I guess a little behind the scenes for the audience for the cases. We always do like some pre-conversational calls before our guests come on. We even know like Michael Terry is part of the family, so it wasn't like super necessary, but just to give a context of what we're talking about. And one of the things I mentioned at the time was that it, as much as it's a barbershop, and this isn't supposed to be like facetious or it's not supposed to be like it very much literally felt like a dojo to me. I felt like I was learning, and I had mentors, and I had people that are older than me that are in my community, and not necessarily teaching you, quote unquote, how to act, but teaching you how to be in community. I think it's still a way to be in your, still a way to be yourself, but also still a way to, and like these are lessons that you get individually from my father to respect your elders and to be there and how to talk, but also now you're in the environment. And something for myself as a kid, I was, especially as I was smaller, you know, I'm not sure if it was anxious or it was just me being youthful, all that type of stuff, but sometimes being in that environment was intimidating because I'm like one of the youngest out of what in my mind were just men. And finding a way to talk appropriately or not talk appropriately, but learning that, not my place, but learning what that bar is in a very active way where no one's telling you when or how to speak, but you just have to say what is on your mind, and is something that I think is, it's hard to say how much that has contributed to my life because it's such a subtle thing that you learn, but I was there every other week or whenever we went for my haircuts and things like that, and it felt like a learning moment that it's very rarely do places give you experience rather than teach you, you know? It wasn't like, oh, hey, be this way. It was also just, I'm in a place where I can garner experience, and without taking too much, I also want to say my pops, for the longest time, when we first started learning, we learned, I think, honestly, it was my first job, I believe, because I may have been 10 or 12, and you guys, we were sweeping the floors at TNT for the longest time, and that teaches you respect, accountability, time, there's so many memories there.
Well, we do appreciate slave labor.
No! Wow! Wow.
We actually have a sign.
Oh no!
I picked it
God!
up in
Oh jeez!
I picked it up in Arizona.
Oh no! Boy, you're going all the way there.
Because, you know, like disrespectful, unruly kids when we school as slaves.
Oh!
I think I learned different lessons.
Yeah,
Slightly different lessons.
I find out now, you know.
To find out.
Well, you know, that just shows that they had a good foundation. They need to get to that point, you know. But there's some we give away for free, man.
I mean, there's so much to say, and even in these few minutes, it's not going to be enough to say about how much we very much respect you and encourage you. Proud, like not just taking care of our hair, but taking care of our heads, quite literally. You know, there was a little bit of a moment, kind of like other barbershops that I have walked into. There's like you meet them in the ground level. Yeah, you walk into a door. And, everyone's there, that's fine, but there was something about going up the stairs
Yes.
to this higher level.
Indeed.
Quite literally. And then you're seeing, welcome friendly faces, and everyone, you know who you want to sit with and who you're expecting to see there, right? Even with that, there was even an understanding, any conversation wasn't really rejected, but more directed in the midst of the conversations that we're having. So even if you were to disagree with a point of view, right, it wasn't well, you're wrong for having the point of view. It was more about let's see why you stand firm on your belief here, right? And all those moments were tested from different people's perspectives, right? And all those perspectives were equally cherished and understood, if not all agreed upon. Right, but nevertheless, I love the fact that we were able to talk about various philosophies to various,
Yes.
Your religious dogma, or even the idea of whether or not aliens visit Earth, to pay a visit to Earth, or if it was a stopping a visit, and all of those I very much respect, honestly.
Actually, you mentioned that. I can think back to the conversation that we were having, you and I. And it's asked me if I believed in aliens. And I was like, if they could go anywhere in the universe, why would they come to Earth? It was as if somebody gave you a ticket to be able to fly or drive or to, anywhere in the world. I want to go to Iowa. But then you came back with something very appropriate. Well, if I needed something from Iowa, then I would go there. I'm like, I gotta keep it on.
All right, so we got 2 states that we have to cross off our Henry Fields fan list. But in terms of, we talked about intellect, and it seems to come back to that. And I've always been amazed by just the wealth of knowledge that you have, and from the philosophy, religion. When you go into the shop, you'll see his the big scripture on the wall, which speaks of if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray. I won't go through the whole thing, but the point is you display that, and you have so much information. So it is ironic that what you do is considered grooming. And so the concept of grooming for the community, what is it that draws you to this mindset of just learning? Like how did you get to where you are?
As far back as I can, I'll put it to you this way. I'm an alum of UAlbany. And in the fall, September of '94, was the first time in, let's say, 16 years that I wasn't actively, starting school, for the year. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And I remember that year going up to the UAlbany Library, because that's no longer, you can still take out material, and I took out about 10 books. And they varied everything from aliens to, just various ancient cultures. I consider myself as having gone through a self-study of ancient civilizations with perhaps a concentration of the role of God and religion in those ancient civilizations. And what that did is put me in a position where you began to understand or look at how various cultures view deities. The ritualistic nature, perhaps, of how they played a role in society, and then perhaps even the commonalities. And that just opened up the world. So now you're looking for commonalities in what seemingly are variously distinct, different ideas. And I believe also in '94, that year, is when I had started to read the Bible and made it my intention to read through it to the end. And I, started to understand, oh wow, this is what the new covenant means, and Job, that was tedious, man. But so I guess mentally I always opened up to learning about different things and trying to put it all together, almost as if an observer standing outside and viewing, the panoramic. it plays out in the shop because a lot of the conversations that take place now, I don't actively engage the conversation. I kind of listen.
Mm-hmm.
And as Trey pointed out, sometimes I'll speak up just to guide it.
Yes,
Back
yes,
on
Yeah.
course.
that's right.
Or
Yeah.
to introduce a concept that seems pertinent
Mm.
to
Yes.
the discussion. And then I'll
Yes.
step back out again and allow the conversation to
All
happen.
right, well,
All right.
well, that's another shout out to our friend Kurt. And Kurt, he definitely is in that job, and he will voice his opinion with a level of passion that is so well received, you know, in the sense of creating narratives and conversations and communications in the shop, which is it's magical in and of itself. And both of them working in
Yeah.
tandem has always been just a wonderful respect, you know. And as he said, he's always been the rudder that guides that ship to sea to make sure that everybody doesn't let their passions outdo their discretion and propriety in their speech, you know, because it can get very
Passionate.
yeah, passionate. No, but,
Well, you know, here's something that I found interesting though. Like as I mentioned, we had many barbers that have worked with us over the years. And various times, people have come to me like years later to say, hey, you know what? This stuff that you talked about back then, that, you know, I just thought you guys were bugging, but I get it now.
yes.
You know, like, and that surprised me because, you know, again, if you can imagine the barbering within Albany, T&T Cuts was one of the first barbershops that moved up from downtown. Now, before T&T, I mean, I actually made an effort to go to the different barbershops wanting to be able to become an apprentice. You know, so I was able to meet some of the ones who were a fixture at the time. I stopped by Stencil's, I stopped by, you know, 3 Star. You know, Herman was a guy that used to, you know, he did more talking than cutting. But, you know, you could start to see the foundation of being in service to the community. It wasn't just about the cut, it's about the atmosphere, it's about greeting people, you know, making sure that people are good, putting a smile on people's faces. That's necessary. You know, I met Bob over at Wisteria, him and his wife, and, you know, felt like I was there. You know, going over to Modern Barbershop and sat there. So I kind of did the rounds, but at the time, they were becoming elders. So here it is, you know, we start the shop, we move up Central Avenue Way, and in the years since, more and more shops came out. Various ones opened and then closed, and some here, some there. And what I find interesting now, and I recognize this when we were doing back to school cuts in conjunction with the University of Albany last year, I worked alongside Barbara John from True Images.
Yes.
And again, we go back years ago, because, you know, years ago, T&T was there before True Images, and those other places open. They kind of came and sussing me out, looking for But now we're the old heads.
Right,
You know,
right.
we've become what Herman and Bob and
Yeah.
were when I was a young man. You know, so one of the barbers that came to us eventually was Mr. James. He's been running a barbershop, and we have a very special, unique relationship. And it got that way because he gave me a chance to peer through the looking glass of what it means to get old in this profession. You know, when you shake a little bit more, or when you kind of don't really want to cut, but you know, you want some place to be. So I got a chance to see things through his eyes. So that previous generation has been very important. I feel like I'm becoming that generation now, and now is the time to redouble efforts in what we can do to affect the community, as well as the young people who may want to get into the trade coming up.
Just talking about things going full circle. People have watched, you've seen me go from having dreads and to not having dreads, and actually that was my second iteration of dreads. My first time cutting them was Mr. Terry, but the person that did my twist and dreads was a young lady named Gina that was associated with Michael Terry. and she would have a bit of the shop. She had a room in there for, in the back there, and she did my hair. We lost Gina way too soon, as well as Mr. James, and but now Gina.
Well, Mr. James is still alive,
Oh,
every time I see him, I say, "Hey, shouldn't you be in the morgue?" Just
wait a minute. Okay,
this guy's unkillable, man. He may still outlast all of us.
That's crazy. He said, wait a minute, hold on. Let's not do that.
Mr. James, I am so sorry.
a rough way to
Well,
find
listen, I apologize. Your demise was wrongly put out there. But with Gina, it turns out her daughter now does the hair of the guys.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a full circle. So beyond the hair, you do many other things. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, some political figures, people who have aspirations of doing whatever local politics, have come through the shop to at least what we call advertise a little bit, or bring their name up to. Am I mistaken in that?
No, you're not mistaken. As a matter of fact, on more than one occasion, I'm just give a shout out to Corey Ellis, who made an effort to come into the shop and sit down and have a conversation with whoever was there. The last time he came with Albany Council member Derek Johnson, as well as Aaron Deere, who I hadn't seen in many, many years, and we had a wonderful conversation. There was even the brothers in the shop that vehemently disagreed with their stance, but so I wouldn't say that I promote politics, but I respected the fact that he was willing to come and have a conversation.
Excellent. Well. Also, now this, I'm just showing you how sometimes people think of just getting a haircut, and you understand now within the African American community, particularly, it is a place, a community central there. But more than that, Mr. Terry is also. You hear his voice. In fact, I think I heard Barry White say, "Man, that guy's got a great voice," And Mr. Terry also does a radio program in his own right. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am an active broadcaster doing radio, actually on the University of Albany station, WCDB Albany 90.9 on your FM dial. And I do the Caribbean music at World Beach Show every Sunday, starting from 4 until 8 o'clock. And I've been doing that Sunday slot since 1993.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I took it over for a brother by the name of Adrian Clark. They used to call it DJ Cockney. He's had that British trying to his Jamaican accent. And unfortunately, I went to his funeral several years ago. One of the nicest men you'll ever know. And it reflected in the people that came out to pay their respects, And I guess in life, everything is a potential teachable moment.
Right.
Going to that funeral and at first being perturbed because it was hard to find parking. We must be near Verizon Depot or something. Come find out, those were his co-workers. Those were, his soccer team came out, his fraternity came out, his church came out. All of these people coming out to show love. And it kind of made me think about what kind of legacy should, I meet that great equalizer. Who would even come out to pay attention? Yeah, there's a lot of people that might hear the news and think, but I don't know if I've kind of had the impact to say that people say, no, I will travel however long it takes to make sure that I'm there and pay my respects. So there's that. It's also kind of pushed me a little bit into wondering, now that I've had all of these years as part of this Albany community, not just as a resident, but as a business owner, what can I give back? How can I volunteer time? How can I be part of things that would benefit the community as a whole, as opposed to, simply being in service by offering service? But how can my time also be to benefit? So that's something I contemplate a lot.
Mm.
That's part of it. But with the radio show, like I said, we do Caribbean music, world beat. I do a lot of Afrobeat stuff, soca, calypso, roots reggae. And it's actually the only time of the week I listen to music. I dedicate 4 hours to the music. And, you know, each day it's just kind of an exploration. Each show's a little different. There are songs that might be in the rotation, so to speak. So I'll be playing them frequently. But every show has its own character and personality based upon maybe one song that kept running through my head for the rest of the week. Or perhaps maybe, you know, algorithm just sends you down a vibe, recommends it's like, that's not a bad track. Do that, you know, just go down a rabbit hole, you know. I'm thankful because there are people, you know, in other parts of the world, other countries, that tune in regularly.
Oh, wow.
That's
Just
great.
have families that would hit me up during the show and things of that nature. But I would say it's an example of perhaps a quality or characteristics of myself and my family, which is we have a certain stick-to-itiveness.
For sure.
You know, like where I've had the same phone number since 1994.
Wow, right,
The
right.
same job for
Actually
30 years.
impressive.
So, you know, it's not that I'm avoid change because I'm constantly willing to accept new things.
Wow.
But there's just the idea of well, I'm not running from anybody. So, you know.
Well, we're gonna shoehorn this in a little bit because we're not running from anybody either. And if you enjoy what you've been watching here on Various Fields with Mr. Michael Terry, please like, share, and subscribe, and
Hit all the
hit all the buttons. And you know, we're really excited about that. That was a little bit.
That was definitely
that was
a shoehorn.
Yeah, I did.
Indeed.
But we're just
Yes, and it's more of a yes or.
yeah. So we're talking about the radio show, and how you expanded upon it. But you also are a person, from what I've seen, you're also a person that can fix almost anything. You know, this is my belief. Carpenter,
Handyman.
mechanic, you know. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, that I have to give to my father. Because as a child, it seemed as if he could fix anything. You know, there was a point in my life where I realized everything that I currently did is because I saw my father doing it. Like I never actually went to a barbershop before I came up to the university. My father used to cut out hair. He didn't do it well, but it was even having the clipper in the house. I believe the spring of my freshman year, my brother was doing an internship. He was at Binghamton University. He came to Albany for an internship. And so we brought the clippers out and I cut his hair and then I did the guy across the hall and blah, blah, blah. And in an interesting kind of bringing it full circle, in my sophomore year is when I officially started trying to cut hair to make money. And that same brother, Adrian Clark, was my first paid haircut. In the first floor bathroom of Waterbury Hall.
Wow.
So, you know, but I liken a lot of what I did to what I saw my father do. And then, you know, I also realized that I kind of lied to myself in high school. And by that, you know, we had one of those resource days you go to see, and they used to take the students aside and go to take a little survey. And the survey was meant to determine what kind of vocation would be best suited for you. And I remember seeing a question that says, you like to, you know, walk around at hardware stores. I'm like, that's corny. No. Home Depot is like the only store. And I'm like, sometimes I'm walking through just thinking ideas, looking at material, you know. But, so, within the course of my life, I'm a tinkerer and a putterer. That is my nature. And I like when projects solving problems. So that probably puts me further into the field. And then there's the need for a new tool to help me get the job done.
Right.
That seals the deal right here. Guess I'm gonna have to get one of those. So that kind of aids in me being somewhat of that person who's willing to explore no matter what the problem is.
Right.
If I know there's a way, I just have to determine how.
Excellent. Wow. That's everything in itself.
That's
So.
it.
I wanted to, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Honestly, there's so much. I feel young again, honestly. I feel like I'm still in one of your chairs, honestly.
It is.
There's so much that you've poured into our cups in our upbringing, right? And I always had to know, like, with your vast wisdoms, who do you contribute, or who do you believe has poured into your cup the most in your upbringing?
Mm.
As in somebody I know or somebody I studied or.
I guess someone you studied and someone you know, a little bit of both.
Yeah. It's not an easy one.
Yeah.
So I have, my mind instantly goes to an aunt of mine. She has since passed away. But she kind of opened me up to many things. And also, I think spiritually, she was a great influence. You know, I mean, I grew up in the church. I grew up as an acolyte. Sometimes 3 services on a Sunday. You know, doing the incense. You know, and even going to Catholic high school was interesting for me because I spent a lot of time. I used to go to mass in the morning. I was in the choir. I just did. You know, and that's a high school experience. But so there was a part of me that was always partial to, you know, learning spiritually, and I think she played a strong role right up until she passed. As far as, you know, maybe even scholars, they were one of the first authors that I really embraced and enjoyed. Actually, was Graham Hancock. His Fingerprints of the Gods book. You know, it was like exploring ancient civilizations and linking what he believed was a common ancestry or a common civilization that influenced all of the ones that we know of or study now. I think about Anthony T. Browder. He did work like the Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization, showing how ancient Kemet, you know, symbolisms go everywhere from the snakes in Ireland to the Washington Monument. But he did a video on the movie Avatar. It was economic, cinematographic, spiritual, linguistic analysis of the movie, showing the complexity of how they integrated African thought and ideology into the film. I think about that one because, you know, one of the things that I remember or I took away from the film is the notion of how they used to always say, how the Navi would always say, I see you. And that was an African concept of I see you and I see the God in you. So it goes against just, you know, checking you out to let me acknowledge that person within, that's the divine spirit within. You know, and it perhaps explained why every time you drive on the road, cats is eyeballing who's in the car. You know, I used to be like, yo, why don't you know, why you ice grilling me? But it could be one of those throwbacks to the idea of I'm acknowledging those who are passing me by. You know, so for the concept of those African principles that may still resonate, and as like, you know, I think Dr. Joy DeGruder, who did work on the post-traumatic slave syndrome, spoke very much about the remnant of behavior passed down. We don't even recognize why we do what we do, but it's just, we're still doing what our parents did, and so on and so forth. You know, so those became powerful ideas, not in just embracing them, but also questioning. Because now we start to get into our own spiritual or religious practices. How much of it is ritualized? How much of it is passed down generation to generation? And we've stopped asking why we do it and just accept that, no, that's just the way it's done.
That's, I wanted to jump in there because that's almost, you asked a perfect question for a question I was thinking the whole time. And this is not to sum anything up, but I see, I guess, a connection between being the handyman, I say handyman, but being able to build and create, being able to be a barber, being able to literally speak to the community in the barber shop and on the radio station, and then all the things that you're learning and taking in, and one, adding in the stick-to-itiveness, as we say. And there's a certain read that I have, and I'm not sure if there's a right answer to this, but I want to ask you, because I feel like I've learned in my journey as I've grown to be part of news and any other experience I've had in like film, things like that, where you have to be very social in that line of work, and there is an aspect of community in the arts and things, and there's definitely a certain side of it. But in our upstate area, I know there's like a little like a, even a bougie take, but you're coming from the city, like, oh, upstate doesn't have this energy, or upstate doesn't have this. But being in the community, being able to speak to it, learn from it, is there an aspect of upstate that you see that has a character that I feel like maybe people can't say, can't see, or just whatever your personal vibes are into that?
Upstate, well, I've come to love the city of Albany.
Yeah.
In a very much a love-hate relationship. I've studied the history of it. Like, I guess in essence, I do consider myself somewhat of a historian.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, both modern and ancient. And so studying the nature of the city, going back to its early roots, as a Dutch, trading post and things of this nature, I've come to appreciate it. It was years coming up from the city. I used to go back quite a bit, and after a while I started to realize how I didn't like to change. That I had to get into the mindset, all right, now I gotta try, a little more aggressive. Like this. So there's a certain flow that I've come to appreciate about upstate. I've also, I've had the benefit of being able to appreciate the various seasonal activities in which Albany is like right smack in the middle of access, whether in Massachusetts or further north or even west, whether it's hiking or camping, canoe camping, skiing, just dabbling in various things. This region just is such a great jumping off point. We also recognize the fact that sometimes the Hudson Valley prevents us from getting things that they get further north or further south. So it's tempered, but overall, one of the things I dislike, and from a business perspective as well, you find that it's college town. You start counting between Albany, former St. Rose, Sage, RPI, Hudson Valley, and all these different schools. People come here to get training or education, but they're usually here for maybe 5 years at a clip.
Right.
So from a business owner's perspective, you have to be prepared to constantly bring in new clientele. Which kind of reminds me of how with Smallbany, a lot of folks don't get away with stuff. So sometimes you watch the news and see their customers and say, "Oh, I guess I won't expect him back."
Right.
That becomes another part of needing to constantly re-up your clientele base or reach out to other people. And as you get older, man, like it's harder. It's not. I mean, when we first started, I was all over Albany, handing out flyers. Then I'm like, okay, summers are dead because of this. So now you start reaching out to community. And different barbers who are from Albany or have family here or grew up here were able to expose us to different groups, folks, their churches, things of this nature. So that was always a good thing. But still, people move. Something across town might be a little more convenient, for whatever reason. So it just seems to me as if this is an area where you don't have a lot of things that truly blossom. Sometimes you look around and you're seeing from 15 to 35 is predominantly range you're seeing of people. Yeah, they're older, younger, but you don't see as many older established people just walking the streets. And I attribute that also to so much student housing and et cetera. But
that's a good take. I was curious on that because I think stepping into, especially now, again going back to the JoJo, and I feel like young again in into our space. We're trying to just set up our podcast now, and I'm coming from, or I'm going to start from a community aspect. And since we started this, and even before this, I think I've considered myself to be someone who's like, oh, I'm about community. And the more I say that, the more I try to establish myself in the community, the more I try to do this, the more I'm like, I think my idea of community kind of keeps changing, and then hearing you, I can just think, I can only imagine, I guess, the experiences you've gone through with the meaning of community, the investment in community, and et cetera, et cetera. So I want to just take a moment to see through your eyes for a second of what community means in all the ways you've seen it. You know, especially in Albany, which I think sometimes gets a certain rep.
Well, I can share this. A few years back, I think my son was graduating from middle school. And not only did we go to, well, it was like a award ceremony, you know, we were dressed up, we went to that luncheon, and then we left there to go up to Saratoga Way, where my daughter was in the play.
Right.
And then from there, I went to visit a brother that I knew that lived up in Wilton. We may have even stopped by another another brother of mine that lives in Kent, you know. And I know as we drove, or at least I explained to him that my community is a very diverse community. It's made up of people of all different backgrounds. You know, one of the guys we're going to see is white, another guy's Puerto Rican, you know, and so on and so forth. And these are relationships that I've built. Now, it's not that we agree by any stretch of the means or we have similar philosophies, but we've come to accept one another. And so I was proud to be able to take my son, to be able to expose him to this diversity of individuals so that he would see, you know, your community are not just the people around you, not just your neighbors. You know, I don't live in Wilton, you know, but my community extends there. And so that's become very important to me, as well as the amount of people that I've had to deal with who are going through challenges, personal challenges. You know, sometimes the shop is somewhat of a safe haven.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, we still, I gotta correct them. I gotta listen. You can't. We don't do that. You know.
Yeah.
Or I think it's time that, you know. But if I see you and you're in need, hey, you need a fresh mask. This is COVID time. You know, let me give you a fresh mask. Do you need some water? Do you?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know. So servicing the community, and this is something that recently I've come to understand. Being in service. It's not just I'm taking money from my community by offering service. There are times when you are giving,
Right.
you know, and you recognizing again that it's the people around you, the people who, you know, if you don't take care of them now, they may be the ones trying to get in the back door later.
Interesting.
You know, the ones who sometimes just need that reinforcement and validation in order to get through today.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I love the idea of comparing you to the concept of a griot, of a person that's a storyteller. When you go into a barber shop, some of the throwbacks of old, some of the tropes that are there, makes you feel very good. Like the pictures is since a child, you'd see this poster of all the haircuts you can possibly get. I don't know who the original models were. They probably are like 102 now. But you would see all the styles. And so there's a story to be told in reference to fashion, style, things that have passed through your eyes, through the zeitgeist that you've seen as a community storyteller. What do you recognize in community, other than the cell phone, that has changed that you could speak to and maybe either offer your point on it, positive or negative, if I'm asking this correctly?
What has changed over the years? Well, one, I think some of, well, I don't know if this has changed, perhaps I'm just more aware, but our current climate makes people both more informed politically and more avoidant politically. That's something that definitely has changed over the years. You know, you could have varying opinions as to, you know, which conservative ideas or, you know, best match your outlook. But, you know, there's a sense of urgency and danger in what's going on that I think comes up a lot. I think that there has been a different expectation too, because again, there's so many more shops, there's so many guys hustling in, so to speak, and people have many options. I think people's patience, no one's coming in any longer ready to spend a few hours in the shop. being part of those conversations. Now everybody wants to listen. I need to get in. I need to get out. I need to do what I gotta do. Boom, boom, boom. So I think that's become a little bit more. I'm aware of that also because with COVID, it became more appointments. Trying to control how many people are in an environment at one time, and that doesn't seem to have gone away.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know we've been talking some heavy stuff, and I don't want anyone to get the impression when you go to TNT Cuts that you're just going into a place of like heavy, deep conversation. Michael Terry's a bit of a nerd himself, and I know when you go, there's some television shows that we have spoken of in the past that you enjoy, and I think, but even when you enjoy television shows, you have like a deeper reasoning for liking the show. So, what are some of the shows that you've shared with me in the past? That are some things that have delighted you?
Well, I can't particularly remember a specific one, but for a long time, like MacGyver would be on in the shop.
That's right. Yes.
And I grew up with MacGyver. In fact, I used to personally identify with MacGyver. I had a little Swiss Army knife. I used to walk around my backyard. Oh, I could use this. I used to fix bikes. And I think that I've reached that age where I can watch shows for the fourth, fifth, sixth time, the same episode over and over, and actually see something that I never caught before.
Yes.
I think that speaks to one's growth and awareness,
Right.
which I think brings us back to the idea of being in a shop, and whether it be barbers that work there or even clients. A certain awareness that they seem to gain from having walked through the doors, of being a part of what happens within TNT Cuts. So that I think was really big for a long time. Currently, for some reason, the show Grimm, that's me. I'm watching that one over and over, rerunning like cool. But I know, years ago we used to watch CNN.
Okay.
CNN. Headline news used to be on 24/7. Well, when we were open. And I remember, maybe we were in this, but there was the plane crash. It was Pan Am, Flight 800, that crashed off the coast of Long Island. And one day, early in the day, I saw a press conference with Pierre Salinger, who was giving results of his as a news person, as an investigative reporter, what he determined happened during that plane crash. What he suggested was that there was a naval vessel, U.S. naval vessel, 10 miles off the coast doing maneuvers, testing a missile that was banned by the SALT I treaty with Russia. There was a dummy target that was launched from the coast of Long Island, and the missile lost its lock, relocked, and the plane striking it, bringing it down. And of course, it was a tragedy, and they sent naval vessels in to recover the wreckage. But what I found interesting with that coverage is that throughout the course of the afternoon, the story is still the same, but the amount of effort to counter the story increased. And by the 6 o'clock hour, you had Governor Pataki and a bunch of NTSB experts come out and say how irresponsible a journalism it is to put these things out there and dismiss it before they even told you what he said. And that was the moment that I realized how the narrative can be controlled, but it also taught me how to listen to television.
Wow.
And since then, now I'm listening like, wait, why did they say it that way? Saying, well, why did they not mention this or that?
Right.
So.
Well, listen. We've got about how much time do we have?
10.
How much?
10.
We got 10 minutes. Oh, we got 10. Okay, so we do have some time. So I do need you to settle this, and I need an objective truth on this because this is something that has gone through the world for a long time, and I need you to give the answer that is correct. Of all the Star Trek captains, who is the best?
Objective truth.
Objective truth, and it will be that.
Okay, so I definitely is a toss-up between Jean-Luc and Commander Cisco.
Yeah, okay.
Oddly enough, I kind of really began to appreciate Jean-Luc Picard in the latter years of the series, and that probably has a lot to do with the production company and the executive producers and the stories that they told. But I began to really appreciate also the concept of Deep Space Nine, and in the latter years as well. It's just the evolution of series. Recently, I've actually watched 2 videos on YouTube that they call like acting masterclass. One on Patrick Stewart,
Yeah.
the other one on Avery Brooks.
Yes.
And what they bring to the table, not just in terms of their character, but in terms of their professional training and how they're able to deliver, and whether it be their hand gestures, their motions with their hands, the way they turn
Yeah.
all of these things which aid in them giving masterful performances. So for me right now, I'm still digesting that,
Right.
that cud.
But listen, please, anyone writing in that disagrees, we mean no harm.
I guess the final question that I have for you is, I know we were talking a little bit about this, and it's, I know you said after the pandemic, everything's kind of changed in terms of kind of like how we kind of focus our efforts into building communities again, particularly in like the loss of third spaces. Coffee shops are shutting down, on barbershops, everyone's coming in and out as we need to, right? I always want to know, right, because that is something that we have drastically lost, like 2020 and after, right? Is there any way in your mind that you believe we could restore those spaces, or are we kind of like doomed to now the subscription era of like get in, get out, and call it a day?
And there's nothing wrong with subscriptions.
Click all the buttons. I can subscribe.
But like even with the idea of like, at one point in time, you're actually able to own Photoshop, and now everything, like including Photoshop, is like a subscription-based trial thing. Is there anything, particularly for the sake of building community, right, a way for us to get back together and kind of like harmonize as not just individuals in a space of individuals?
Honestly, I mean, life goes through cycles,
Mm-hmm.
and some things which have gone out will come back. It's just a story on a company that's producing tapes again. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, oddly enough, sidebar, I had an old college chum of mine. We've kept in contact with varying gaps over the years. She moved to Florida. And she reached out to me about 2 weeks ago and asked if this number was still a valid number for me. So I responded. And she called and she said, I'm getting rid of my cassette collection. And because you introduced me to the genre of reggae, I wanted to send it to you. So I'm just like, you know what, I'm at that stage of life where I have enough. I learned that from Jim Carrey, but I believed him when he said, I have enough. And I don't want to keep collecting things that I'm just going to store.
Right.
But then she started telling me the names of what she had. And I'm like, I got to send it to you. I got to get there. So she sent it to me. And, I was a little late when I received it, because I took the time to buy a card. And I hand wrote, a message to her.
Nice.
And put the cost of postage in. Man, I can't tell you how many cursive letters I forgot how to write. I write this capital J again. No, that's it. But I got through it. You know what I mean? An exercise in old school penmanship.
That's right, yeah.
Reaching out to an old friend the old ways,
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to this idea of modern things may come around full circle,
Right.
Maybe new things will take over. Maybe, people will have to go to various fields to start building, how they want to communicate one to another, or topics that become relevant to the experience of what, as a community, that we're facing. Because I have some of the members of the Common Council in the shop quite regularly. And, I will speak frankly with them. I think you're not ready for prime time, I'll let you know. But to have those conversations, because also too, and believe it or not, at one of the Alive at Fives, I saw Mayor Kathy. And I made an effort to go and talk to her and just thank her, because I know being a mayor is not easy.
Absolutely.
You know, I've watched Mayor Jerry's administration and began to understand how mayors can function. I watched Mayor Kathy and I told her, I said, listen, I see administration as being one that tried to, you know, really have diversity, to have inclusion and accessibility. Were efforts that she was making very strongly through her administration. Now, all the problems couldn't get fixed, and so we debate if those should have been at the top of the list. But I see you. I see what you tried to do.
I like that, I like that.
And I'm just going to thank you. You know, I've run into Judge McCoy, the Albany County, and I thanked him too for his service. Because every time I see him, he's trying to do good work. People may debate, but I'm, you know, again, half full. I'm going to try to see the good in you, what you've done, as opposed to be always willing to condemn, to speak negatively. And I want to, as Damien Jr. Gonwale, one of his songs, Speak Life. You know, we need to speak life. We need to build a community by speaking life one to another, to validate each other, to reaffirm one another, to be able to give each other some positive reinforcement instead of, you know, I'm seeing you as a predator. What do you want? How are you trying to get me? You know, and there are a lot of people, Mr. James, you one of them who's their life experience that says, no, you know, I'm viewing everyone as if I need to have my guard up at all times. I don't, my guard is up not because I have value to lose, per se. You know, some years ago, traveling, you know, in North Africa, you know, came across a fellow who, you know, was so happy to meet Americans, you know, could practice his English. He was very chatty, wanted to interact, and I think it was the biggest thing I ever encountered. And I learned the concept of my friend, you have no friends here. And that has translated into how I kind of walk through the community. My friend, you have no friends here. You can only expect that there are times where your interest and their interest coincide and you travel together. But as soon as their interest diverges, they will follow their path, as they should, as you should. But expect no more from anybody than to do what's in their own best interest, in which case you'll never be disappointed.
Wow,
You
that's
know what I mean? So I expect somebody to do what's in their own best interest, but as opposed to, oh, Mike, you my man, I'd never do this to you. You know, I've had barbers that have had opportunities that are wonderful opportunities or necessary opportunities, and they had to leave me.
Right.
You know, and I can't take that personally.
Right.
But you must.
Yes. Well, listen, we are about to land this plane, as they say. And speaking of planes, you're also a pilot. I'm not going to try to open up that door, but is it or you're working towards your pilot, or being a pilot? And I appreciate your worldview. So we're going to land, but I do have a quick question, and maybe we can answer it in 15 seconds. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. I saw the back of a chair and saw the sun rising, or saw the sun in the back of a chair, and they asked him, is that sun rising or setting for this nation? What do you believe in reference to the hope of this nation? Really quickly.
15 seconds.
I have great hope for the nation. Again, it's not for me to hope for the for the fall. And even within whatever disagreements may have with the administration's policies and how they do things, I'm not hoping for them to fail. Because if they fail, we fail.
Absolutely.
You know, but at the same time, things are necessary sometimes. I think it was Randall Carlson on a podcast he was doing. I believe he was talking with Joe Rogan, again with Graham Hancock. They asked him about climate change, and his response, I think, was very telling. He goes, "Yeah, you know, climate does change, but his work in geology has shown how there have been cataclysmic events that have changed the world overnight. You know, younger Dryas type things. And so for him, he doesn't worry about the temperature rising a few degrees Celsius every few years as much as the major things that come through and been great classmates.
All right.
And, you know, with the hope or the expectation that perhaps civilization rises again.
Fantastic. I'm gonna let the guys close out, and we're gonna say, we've been talking with Michael Terry from TNT Cuts. We got 4 minutes?
No,
No,
30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Yeah.
Real quick?
It was honestly wonderful to have my cup filled again from this conversation. I have nothing else to say. Hope to see you again on the next one if we are willing to have you, always.
Because we have 30 seconds. Mike, you're great.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my good friend Michael Terry. Thank you so much for being here. We're honored to have you. This has been another global community conversation, Various Fields Dialogues. Thank you for being here on Various Fields. Thank you, Michael Terry, for being here with us.
You're welcome.
See you on the next one.